There you go.
All right. I wanted to get the closing company in. We had one last week.
Yep.
Title and settlement company in that I had some experience with in front of you guys. Our folks in Altoona and Johnstown are familiar. Don't keep an eye on that, so someone tries to get in. Like that. These folks do it right, and that's understanding it. So I wanted to make sure that they got in front of you guys, and we can hopefully, enhance their involvement here as we further build our relationship with them in our other two offices, the two markets. So I wanted to get them out here, and I'm glad you brought Corey too, because he's the sidekick. Actually, you're the sidekick.
Yeah, he's in the show. I'm just along for the ride.
So Corey and Randy have come to our office a couple of times. They're going to touch on some stuff, basics stuff for our PC class to pick from, but they'll open the floor to questions, and I'm sure they'll give you all their time. They always have, and the staff that they have, I will gloat on from forever. The standard there is not too dissimilar to what we're used to in Federal Williams. So that's another reason why I thought it was important to bring them in. So the floor is yours.
Awesome. Thanks for having us. I appreciate it. We wanted to bring some folders for everyone. There's plenty here, but and if you need more, there's some good stuff in the folders that we have for you, but I can go over it first. Obviously, our big thing there is a universal settlement services in Pittsburgh. We are not affiliated whatsoever. So if anyone asks or says anything that has nothing to do with us, they're like a law firm based title company, but a lot of people get us confused with them. And they always tell us with all the problems they didn't do. So we're like, nah, that's not us. Right now we have 4 offices. State College is the headquarters where most of the people that you'll see on the contact sheet are. But we do have an office in Altoona. We have one in Muncie and Lewistown. But we close in all of Pennsylvania. So we do have notaries that can travel to obviously Pittsburgh to do closings. We have connections with notary services that can do closings in other areas in Pennsylvania. So we are not just State College, Muncie, Lewistown, and Altoona. We will go anywhere, whenever, to make obviously the buyer and the seller's transaction smooth as possible. We have 26 people within Universal, so we do it a lot differently than most title companies. Most title companies, you're assigned to a person, and that's your person the whole way through the transaction. Great, but also not great when they're in a closing, off work, sick, have to run 10 different places. The way that we've set up Universal is we have every single person on staff touches the file. So we have buyer, client, just like I know how I used to be, I was a real estate agent at one time. So, and I actually used to work for Collins. So I have the knowledge of how they have set things up, but their whole team structure of having buyers agents, sellers agents, and like coordinators and all that, that's kind of how we have our setup. So we have a buyer side coordinator, which is Jade and she has an assistant. And then we have the seller side, which is Katie and Emily with their assistant. And then those are the client team. So we have a client team of people, and we have an email. So when you email to the client team, it goes to those people. Then we have the processing team, which is just processing the title, working on the problems, getting all of the fun stuff fixed, which you see on every file right now. We have the closing, and then funding and post-closing. So we have different teams within Universal, but everyone touches the file, and that was always super important to me and Corey when we're trying to set up and how to grow Universal, having someone be involved so that if you call, you're going to get an answer. It's not, well, that person's out today, so sorry. You're going to have to wait till they get back from vacation. That was one thing that always bothered me with other companies. So I wanted to make sure that that's not how we did that when we were growing Universal. So that is one thing that's different. The other big thing is we do not charge junk fees. So we do not have a settlement fee. We don't have a notary fee. We don't have a doc prep fee. There's a lot of fees that a lot of title companies charge the buyer, and we do not charge those. So it's just the title insurance, the endorsements that the lender would require, the CPL, that's it. So you'll still have the standard recording, transfer taxes, that's not a title fee, but the settlement fee, the doc prep fee, I know there was a sheet out there that I was looking at, they have a lot of different fees, we do not charge those. We try to keep the cost low for the buyer because they're already have closing costs, when especially if they're getting a mortgage. So anything that we can eliminate, we do. Seller side, we do handle the seller side, even if we're not doing the buyer side. And we have an attorney on staff if we need that. So if we need to do a deed, if we need to get that notarized, we can coordinate all of that for your seller as well. Our deed prep fee is $125. That includes the deed, the seller's affidavits. If we have to like overnight to Texas or something because your seller's in Texas, there's a FedEx fee, but that's our fees for the seller side as well. We have authorizations and all that goes with the seller package. We work with that's handling the purchase for the buyer to work with them to get that deed approved. So that's our basic overview. I know that a lot of people might have had questions when it comes to different fees besides the ones that we don't charge. There's a rate sheet in your folder. Title insurance is set by the state, so this doesn't change no matter what title company you go to. So if you were buying a property at $310,000, your title policy is going to be $2,222. And that is standard no matter where you go. If you are getting a mortgage, there's going to be endorsements. Those endorsements, the standard ones are right on the inside flap right here. So usually like 3 of them, which is total to be $300. And then the CPL, that is a standard fee, it's $125. Most lenders require that. There's very few that do not require the CPL. That's a certified protection letter. Those are the fees. And like I said, this is standard no matter where you go because it's state regulated. And we have this, but this is a title capture. It's an app that you can download. So you can actually, it's web-based, but you can jump on and you can just do your quotes in there. So like you put in the loan amount, purchase price, where you're closing at, and it should generate all of your fees for you for the title.
I think it just directs you to our website.
Yeah, some of them.
It's not bad.
Will,
Right?
some of that should be the actual app.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah, and then if you want to jump on our website too, if you're out and don't have that, if you haven't downloaded it, you can just go onto our website and there's a get a quote and you can just generate it from there too.
Should I pick brand here for?
You can get me here.
That's good to have because a lot of times when you're showing homes and people have, to get them to have an idea of what their costs are, especially when you guys are putting your estimated cost sheets together.
Yeah.
It's good to know just right off the bat to know what those figures are going to be, that you can give them a good estimate. A lot of the banks, they overestimate so much, sometimes they lose a deal because they're putting all these extra fees in that they don't know what's going to be charged. And the buyer's looking at, well, why am I paying this much to get this loan? So this will be easier for you guys to get a really good estimate of what your buyers are actually going to pay on the title side of it. And it's nice that it's going to be the same for every transaction. So no matter what it is, it's based off the title insurance, endorsements, like Brady said, and there's no additional fees that you have to think, oh, are they charging this on this transaction? Are they not charging this? We don't charge it at all.
So for everybody that's jumping online, there's a couple of folks that are coming in. Let me let Andy in real quick, and then I'll run down what's going on so that everybody knows that's coming in and maybe like who's talking, what's going on. So for PC this week, I wanted to make sure we had somebody, look at this, here it is, picking up. There we go. I wanted to make sure that we had another title and settlement company in, but not just any. One that I've had tremendous experience with. Title and settlement is obviously an important part of what we do. And for all of you guys that are new to the industry, I can tell you that when I was new to the industry, that this group was a huge help to me. And I would not have, and I mean this, I would not have been able to close the deals, the first couple of deals that I was able to get closed without them. And that's the truth. Brandy gave her time to me after hours on more than one occasion to answer the dumbest questions in the history of mankind. But they were a great personal help to me to help get my business started. And I have seen and met and have a chance to meet some great people in this industry in that aspect as far as title and settlement. There are a lot of great ones, but there's really only one that I like working with. So I know that's steering, but what the hell. So I wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to meet them. It's Brandy and Corey from Universal Title and Settlement. And they are going to continue to talk about what they offer, how they offer, go over some basics, and then answer any questions that you have. So anybody online that has a question, put your hand up and we'll get you on to ask. Otherwise, the floor is back to you guys.
Thank you. So you'll find in the folders, it has a lot of good information. Corey and I have our phone on us. I know I have it on me all the time. I'm sure there's been many times for Doug's phone, there's this child screaming in the background at night, and I'm like, sorry.
Yeah, we really don't have after hours.
You may get a 1-year-old screaming in your ear, but.
We have the same schedule as you guys. It's 24/7, right?
Yes.
If you have somebody who wants to look at the house, they're gonna go out of your way to get them to look at the house, right? Yeah, exactly. So we're reachable.
And there's, so in the folder, there's 2 guides that we have put together. One's called a home buyer guide and one's called a home seller guide. The home buyer guide is great, especially for first-time home buyers or buyers that haven't bought in a few years, especially in the last like 5, just because everything has changed so much. But it goes through like step by step. So it starts you off on a quick reference guide, rent versus buying, how much home can you afford, new loans, what is title, and then there is a page, like if you're showing houses, like there's a home comparison page that they can actually like make notes on as they're going from house to house. What is title insurance, different title problems, what is escrow. There's a lot of just good information for first-time home buyers, and I've always been the one, like the more you know, the better off you are. So I love when people ask questions, and I just think it's super important to like educate buyers and sellers, just because it helps you, but also helps them make good decisions. So the home buyer guide and the home seller guide are, I think, have been super key in first-time home buyers especially. But we, for you as agents, are always here to answer your questions. Like, it doesn't matter what the question is. I've been on a little background about, I've been on the mortgage. So I graduated high school and went right into mortgages. I did not go to college. I went for maybe 2 years and that wasn't my thing. So I went right into the mortgage side. And then from mortgages, I went into title, and then I wanted to know how the realtor side works. So I got my real estate license just to understand it, to be better on my side of being a title agent. I think the more that you have bits and pieces of all parts of it, the better off you are for that client. So I did that, and then I was still doing title, and then I decided that I was either doing real estate, realtor side, or title, and I just continued on with title. So I have a little bit of knowledge of like, and we've been in, Corey and I started about the same time, almost the same exact way too, but it, we've been on both sides. So we have great understanding of the mortgage side. So when you guys have questions of like why or how, or does this work this way, we kind of have an understanding of how it might work or how to do something, because we've been on all sides of the transaction. So. I talk a lot and fast.
Well, I think personally, I think what sets us apart compared to other title companies is our communication. So when we get a contract in, right off the bat, we're contacting both sides of the transaction, and getting both your buyers and or sellers information so that we can introduce ourselves to them, so they know who we are, number one, And then if they have questions, that they can reach out to us during the transaction as well. That alleviates some of the stuff off of your guys' plate. Then they're asking you questions about title where they can just go right to us directly and ask us those questions. Rather than getting in touch with you guys, and then you being the middleman, you're working on other things, right? You're showing clients other houses. So you have other things to do. So we try to take some of that off your plate so that we're helping you guys go do your job, go sell, right? That's what you're here for. Go sell and get those new clients to either buy a house or do a listing. So I think that's what helps us is our communication skills with our staff, with your buyers, with your sellers. And that way, by the time closing comes, there shouldn't be any questions. You know, everything should really, kind of like on the mortgage side where the CD has to be out 3 days in advance. There really shouldn't be a whole lot of questions when the buyer gets to closing, other than maybe if the amount changed by a few dollars, right? Why did it change? But at that point, when we get to the closing table, everything should be answered. If you have intelligent buyers that think they know everything, and they just want to call us to ask questions to confirm that they know everything, we'd love to talk to those people too.
That never happens.
So, but we get a lot of questions. You know, agents will call us, or even banker people will call us and say, "Hey, I have a dumb question about title." There are no dumb questions because it's just you don't know the answer yet, right? So it's not a dumb question. It's just that there's a million things that you need to know. I think with us, with our joint venture that we go through this on a daily basis, we're all constantly going back and forth. Hey, did you hear how this is handled now? So it's a really changing business as well. So there's always something new around the corner. So there are no dumb questions to us. If there's something that you don't have an answer for, by all means ask it. That way it just helps you out more, right? So
I will say one of the big things, obviously, I'm sure you've heard about it, is wire fraud right now. So it's crazy. It's getting worse. We have over in your, as you hopefully will work with us in the future, you'll see like changes on what we do. Because one thing that I've always wanted to do is make sure that we are the top of the top in technology, making sure how we do it and what we do, and then knowledge. So we are constantly trying to like, how can we better us to better you, to make the experience more enjoyable for the buyer, for the seller. So wire fraud, our server is as secure as it can be. And we send out blasts about wire fraud all the time throughout like the transaction to your clients. If you hear your buyer saying anything about, well, I just got these wiring instructions. I know a lot of agents in State College, I don't know if it's gotten this far yet, but they've had their buyer sign a wire fraud document now when you sign the contract, just to like get them, hey, like make sure you pay attention to this. That's something that's happening. It's happening more and more. We're seeing it more and more.
Randy, I have my buyers and my sellers sign a wire fraud disclosure every time.
Yes.
And I don't know if everybody online does that too, but I'm sure Randy has a horror story that she can share with us to inspire you. Because it was the first horror story that I heard that inspired me.
Yeah.
And it was an agent that I knew, a Keller Williams agent, not in this office. And it was $500,000. And I put myself in that agent's shoes that day. And I thought to myself, what would it feel like to make that money? I literally felt so sick. I felt sick.
Yeah.
And then I was in a broker's class, and it was a law class, and the lawyer taught us that, and it says it right in the sales agreement, and I hadn't noticed it until he pointed it out. But under a certain threshold, you know, you can use a check. But over a certain threshold, your buyer has to use a cashier's check. You've made your sales agreement, I believe, voidable. And it's right in there, and it's in big bold letters, and I think people miss it a lot. And so I always bring it up whenever wire fraud comes up, because I think it's important to know when to use a check, when to use a cashier's check, when to avoid a personal check, right? And what wire fraud is and what it really looks like.
So we had a few. I've heard, there's been a few agents in the area in State College that have the buyer. So we had one where the buyer, we had sent the wire fraud email. We were dealing with the husband. We only had the husband's email. And we ask for all email so that we can right off the bat. So when you send the sales contract to us, have the contacts for your buyers so we can send out the welcome email. So we were only provided with the husband's email. The husband was the only, like, had the wire notification, had saw that email like the whole way through. And the week before closing, the wife, for some reason, jumps on the husband's email and sees this email and hurries up, runs to the bank and sends her $76,000 out and goes to closing. Our closer called me and was like, hey, the buyer just wired their money. Did we get it? And I'm like, no. And his stomach sank because he was like, what am I supposed to tell these people? And it's a horrible situation to be in. They tried everything. We called the FBI. There is a website that you can go to the second it happens to report it.
There's a hotline.
Yep. Yep. So you do all of those things, but because the way that this was set up, how wires do not get flagged as red is if it goes to 3 different banks before it gets sent overseas.
And it happens so fast.
Yep. So as long as you have 3 days before, so that's what happened. 3 days before, it was like, send money now or else you're not closing on such and such a date. And because the wife jumped into the husband's email and had not seen all the prior emails before, she just
Did it.
yeah, even though her name was spelled wrong in the email, like the information below was like very like
You
I
guys
would have
literally,
read like
so subtle. We're talking about a period.
Mhm.
We're talking about Brandy's email
Yeah.
to match. There's a period.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a space. You don't even see the space.
Yes.
And
some of
had
them
she
look
called her
like-
husband as well, she didn't even call her husband. She
Yeah.
literally read the email,
and ran to
printed out
the
the wiring instructions and drove right to the bank to wire the money.
It's gone.
So
Yeah. So they got 45,000, I think, back of it. But
Insurance, was it bank insurance? Was there some, was it?
nope, they were able to trace some of it because they did it through. So the way that the newest way is to do the hackers are doing paychecks. So if they do it through as a paycheck, they have to fund the money, which is different than just doing wire. So they did it as a paycheck. So when you do it as a paycheck sent, like that money has to go through. So they found a way to hook it up to.
Wow.
So that was 2-3 years ago. We had all of our stuff looked at and there was nothing on our side. It was a Gmail account that got hacked and they went into the Gmail account and just started watching the whole way. And they had been in there, like our IT guy actually went into their email and saw that they'd been kind of like looking at it for almost a month and a half, I think is what they said.
I mean, we're targets.
Yeah.
We're targets for these guys, right? They love our email. It's filled with all kinds of yummy, yummy goodies for them.
Yeah.
And they'll watch us for
yeah.
years,
Oh, yeah.
right? It's crazy.
Speaking of yummy goodies, there's food, so make sure you guys eat. Let me-
Sorry for all y'all back
Thank you for
there.
sharing that story.
Let me get in here. I'm gonna share something. So if you just jumped on or just walked in, this is Brandy and Corey from Universal Settlement. They are commonly, we use them quite a bit out of Altoona. They brought some files, some folders in. We'll leave a few here and I will bring some to Johnstown later today. Karen, on my way through, I'll swing by and drop a couple off there. Most of our agents in Altoona have them already. If anybody needs one that's on here from Altoona, let me know. I'll bring a couple to you. But we're going over a lot of basic information. Let me turn off my sound. That's bad. There we go. But I want to make sure that we cover some basics that are important to remember. So I'm going to share my screen. Only the host can share the screen. That's a good thing I know people. Does anybody have any questions for Corey or Brandy right now while we're waiting for me to No questions online, in room, anybody?
I have a question. Maybe? Okay, so one, typically when I send a file over, just so I want to know like how you guys get it. So I will provide, you know, like lenders, contact information in my contact, the other agents, my clients, the par agreement of sale, and then the OGM. Is there anything else you're looking for, or what do you?
That's perfect. We have a buyer sheet then you'll get back from us that will have like all of the questions, like, is there a home inspection? Is there this, is there that? And then the stuff that you've already provided, you don't have to fill out again, but anything that wasn't provided, you can just swap on that.
Yeah, and typically too, like in my wording, I will say, like, I will let you know once we've cleared inspections. That way, obviously, you guys can get started doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
But once we know we've cleared, then we can really accelerate. Okay, perfect. And then my other question was, as all these people are touching the file, how many people am I actually dealing with?
Just with the client team. So under the top there, it will be Katie, and then it will be.
Some people shift their offices.
I'll send you the client sheet. There's on the buyer side, if you're on the buyer side, you'll be doing with Jade and Andrew.
Okay.
On the seller side, you'll be doing with like Katie, Emily, and possibly Mike. They fill in if one of the others are out. But that's all you'll be doing. And then obviously Corey and I are copied in everything. So if you need anything, shoot me a text. I obviously see all the emails, so I'm happy to help. I'm usually on the backside working on problems. Corey's working on problems. So we are still working on the file. It's just on the back.
Yeah.
For notices.
Yeah,
Okay.
just know this,
Oh, no, you're
the reason we have it set up this way is so that we're gonna provide you an answer that you're not gonna have to wait for.
No, certainly, yeah.
Yeah, so if somebody's out of the office for, you know, they have a sick kid or whatever, right? That way there's someone that's always in communication. They all know the file, they all have an answer for you, and they can get out to you guys quick. So sometimes you need an answer quickly, you're gonna get it from us.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate everyone knowing that. My concern was just if I personally had to deal with all the people, like, you know how many emails we get coming through anyways. I was like, I can't keep track of how many people, who do I email for what?
So there's client@settlementsdirect.com, and if you use that, it goes to the people that you need to get it to, and then we'll respond accordingly. So like so whoever needs to so if you send to client, then if it's Jade will respond to you, but if it's Katie will respond to you. So that if you always use client, whoever is in charge of that question will respond to you.
I love that you guys have that coverage, and I just shared the app and your information out on our Facebook group page for all of our agents and news.
Awesome.
So, and I think they were just revamping that app too, that actually, if you have the seller or your bank, like if a bank gave you some fees, you can actually generate a buyer's estimated closing cost within there too. So, and it will actually forward onto a CD, so you can actually look at it through CD.
Love that.
Yeah. So there's a lot.
We love it.
Property aggressive and
I love
everything.
it.
We love it.
I do love that.
Love it.
So real quick, back to your wire fraud
Yeah.
thing with funding. So what we'd like to see is anything under $1,000. If you have a buyer that needs to bring $400 close, we're okay with a personal check. Okay, 1,000 above, we want a cashier's check from the bank. If it has to go to the wire, where the buyer has to wire the funds, we'll be in direct communication with them. So they'll either email us directly and say, hey, I'd rather send a wire than I can't make it to my bank, or my bank's 45 minutes away. I don't have that capability to go there and grab a cashier's check. Then we'll communicate with them. We'll send them directly. We'll alleviate you out of the email so that we're dealing directly with the buyer at that point. Okay. We'll send them the wiring instructions. We'll have them call us. We'll verbally verify the information with them over the phone at that same time, and then tell them not to deviate from those instructions.
Tell their wife and their sister. And
Yeah,
their brother
exactly.
And then their dog.
Don't jump on
And
someone
the
else.
dog.
Yeah.
On the seller side, we actually have a seller wire form that needs to be filled out, signed, and notarized before we will wire to any seller. We actually just got a safe validation. It's a program that only
I don't know how many title companies actually use it, but we started using it. So it actually goes into a software and we put all the information and it validates that that information is actually going where it's supposed to go and that it's going to the right spot. So it actually double checks it for us. So we won't be wiring to anyone that isn't supposed to be getting some money.
Just because you guys are talking about like the fraud and everything like that, when my sister was in closing on her home last year, she actually got offered like a check from, I think it was a scam,
Yeah.
of being like, hey, you were approved for this much towards your closing costs. We misissued the check for, let's say, $3,000. You only get to keep 2,000, so if you
Yeah.
cash that, send us back the other 1,000, you know. So I didn't tell my buyer, I'm like, hey, if you get anything like that, but you have not, you know, applied for a program, something
Yeah.
like that, do not do it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, it's crazy. There's so many scams out there. And the more, that's why I think we love technology because there's so many things that it helps with, but the face-to-face, the contact, that I don't ever want us to get away from, only because because of this. There's so many chances, there's more chances of the fraud, there's more chances of the hackers getting into things, scams and all of that. So although there's a lot of title companies that use these different softwares like Folia and all of these other software companies, we do not like them. I despise Folia with a passion. That's a personal thing for me. But it takes away from the person to person and having that conversation. And this is such a big investment for a buyer and a seller's moving, or just they lost their husband, so they have to downsize, those type of things that I would never switch to that. Our client team is super not in your face, but in your face in a good way. And we won't, what was that?
On it.
Yeah, and our software, we are changing to a more techie software, but it's only as an added bonus to you guys for integration purposes, not to eliminate us, the person. Feels about that, but.
I don't like Folia at all.
Okay.
I can't stand it.
Yeah, we haven't met an agent that does like them.
Yeah,
to be honest with
I
you.
don't like it. Well, what? You get so many emails like, oh, create an account.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what
Yeah.
even is this? I'm deleting emails. And they're like, we sent you these paper, 3 weeks ago. I'm like, what are you telling me? I don't know what this is. Like,
Yeah, never even heard.
We get so much spam mail, you have to be clear and concise about what,
right.
if you're to send me something, it better be, the message better be clear in the subject line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of title companies are getting away from having employees. They're getting these softwares, they're getting these
Yeah.
programs that are really alleviating some jobs.
Yep.
And it's making it easier on them, but there's no personability there. They're not communicating with you, they're not communicating with your buyers or your sellers.
Sounds like a surefire way not to close.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it could be.
For
Yeah.
this thing, you don't talk to a human and just like, okay, yep, you did it.
There's a title company in our area that
Oh,
switched to that.
No.
I look at you.
You know,
Hybrid.
in 6 years, I've worked with
Good, I
5
would
title
do all
companies
of
and
it.
I never upload anything to anybody.
Right.
You know, seriously, like,
They eliminated almost, I think they only have like 2 or 3 people working in their office. So like
COVID thing.
everything's electronic, and they did it because they're like, oh, we don't need this many people, but you still do.
right.
You still need the person to pick up the phone when the buyer's freaking out because their bank's 3 hours away. How do I get money now because I can't wire online, I can't do this, like what's the next best option? And if you don't have someone on the other line that's willing to answer those phones, that is something that bothers the crap out of me. I love when things are easy, like tech things that I can on our side when we're processing a file, that's one thing. But to actually talk to a person
It's the same story on every side of the industry. Zillow can't replace Ally. Their algorithm can't account for everything her brain can account for. It's just not possible when looking at comps, right? It's that way on every side of the industry.
Just
It doesn't
yours.
matter- I mean, it doesn't matter what side it's on, though. It's on every side of the industry. You have to have somebody to hold your
Well-
hand through this process.
Yes, and there's Carvana. What's the other one?
I mean, buying a house is a lot
Right.
different than buying a car.
Right, but see, here's the thing, they set in motion 12 15 years ago, you can buy a car online. Okay, that's fine. Zillow found out last year, you can't buy a house online. You can, good luck.
Yeah.
There's a human element to the stages of this process that will never, in my opinion, should ever be replaced. I say will never, but should never be replaced. This backside aspect of it, why people are trying to reinvent the wheel is beyond me. You need a beating heart to take care of the things that need to be taken care of. I mean, just looking at what you need to prep for a closing alone. You need a human being on the other end of that, that understands what needs to be done, how it needs to be done, and who needs to be involved. You don't have that?
There's misrepresentation and fraud in every system that exists
Yep.
to some degree. There's no way to buy a home safely without human beings helping. I mean, if you want to throw your money away, there's a bunch of them in Florida for sale.
Yeah. Mhm.
Sinking.
I don't even like doing the contract and stuff. I told Ally, I said, the next contract I do will be in person, because the whole DocuSign, they can't figure it out on their end. They missed 5 pages, and I'm like, hold on, let me resend it to you, or, you know, I don't even like that. I want to sit in front of somebody and go, here, right here, 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 and here.
I use my consumer notice as my DocuSign test. And I test.
Can they pass
That's
this?
right, that's right. And I tell them that.
Yeah.
I said, I'm gonna send you this
Yeah.
first document in DocuSign, it's called consumer notice.
Yeah.
We've already talked about it, it's already in my email, blah, 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 blah,
Yeah.
blah, blah, blah. If you have any trouble clicking in one spot,
Yeah.
I wanna know. about
Yeah.
it. Because if we have trouble there, we're gonna get together. You can't do a sales agreement.
Well, there's so many parts of the sales contract that if you are not paying attention to or not pointing out to the client. I mean, we saw one where it was this market and it was crazy and everything was DocuSign, but there was a very small 6% seller's assist that the seller's agent missed because they were in a hurry and sent it to the seller. Here, go ahead and sign it, everything's fine. Didn't go through because they were in and they ended up eating the 6% out of their commission
Oh, yeah,
because
you do.
it was missed. And those are the things that even when it's crazy and things are chaotic, you still need to remember that it's almost like in this side, you're a doctor because you are doing, the buyer is they're probably their biggest investment of their life. And they want to know that you care about them and that they, in their head, you're their only client. They're their only client. So it's crazy, and we do this every day. So to us, it's just like, okay, yeah, that's fine. But then we also have to sit back and think like, this is their first house or this is their second house that they haven't bought in a while. So for us, that's why we have so many people working is because of the questions. And we want to make sure that we're answering them and getting everything to them in a quick and timely fashion because it is such a fast-paced environment. But it's important that we have that face. So that's just
Posting with a title company without people makes me think of like going under agreement with a Rocket Mortgage pre-approval. I'm not doing it. I have 5 brokers, call them. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. I'm not using internet loans and I'm not using Rocket Mortgage.
I think we just got I got our first Zillow mortgage
Ooh.
closing and I was like, this is not
Ooh. Yeah, no.
I would say, and not to be Debbie Downer, but I'm gonna say it, and there's nothing that you can do about it, just because of your location, and time takes time, but so like here in our local weird Western Pennsylvania, we have the weirdest just local boroughs and municipalities, and every single one of them does everything completely different.
Yeah.
And like, you know, the local
Yeah.
people, you know, are like, you say the name Jordan Tax Service and everyone's crazy. Or the, you know, some people are like, oh no, I want a first name basis. I go down there and hand on their door. And so for me, initially, that'll be the biggest, like, and then, you know, be a learning curve for everyone, just like learning all of the things. I guess that's just my only, not
If it makes you
even
feel better.
concern or hesitation, but just like, Western Pennsylvania is freaking weird.
So Katie, who works, she's on that list. She actually lived in Pittsburgh for 7 years and she was a realtor. So she knows.
So that is obviously a bonus, but one of the things that I'm a women certified business owner through the state, and that allowed me to get onto the turnpike. So the Mafia project that was going on and the big turnpike that was coming through, I was on that. So I had to deal with all of Pittsburgh for 200 parcels of ground. And it was
Oh,
rural
that
tax
was
service.
fun.
That was
Oh.
great.
Jordan
Sounds
had-
fun.
Yeah,
So
everyone
Jordan
that
and
knows
just
knows.
yeah.
Hey, you know,
Yeah.
everybody rates Jordan, Keystone and Berkheimer. I'm gonna take you back to a place 20 years ago, or 30 years ago before them, where we said, hey, Borough, just pick your own collector. He could be Doug. And then we all sent our money to Doug, and then Doug went to
So-
Hawaii. And then we got all a letter that said, hey, you still owe that tax. And we're like, wait, what happened to Doug?
Yeah, yeah.
And they're like, yeah, well, you were responsible, so you might as well just send it in again. So Jordan, Keystone and Berkheimer are an improvement
Yeah.
from where the Western Pennsylvania Gestapo started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
just so
that
you-
is good information to know. So thank you.
Tax, I used to be tax.
you know, we're calling the municipality as well. And, you know, on the listing side, or the buyer side, you can furnish that information too, maybe on the listing side more.
Yeah.
Hey, the water authority's separate from the sewer authority.
Yeah.
You won't get a hold of the sewer authority, but here's their information, right?
Yeah, right.
The water authority you'll be fine with, and just so you know, we take care of contact water and sewer. We're responsible to make sure that that could be a lien on the property.
Right.
So we're actually calling our office. We have a person in our office that's all she
Dedicated to
does.
water and sewer.
Oh, gosh, you guys need one.
That's it.
Yeah.
That person needs.
So-
to-
So that
Yeah.
alleviates it. Some
Yeah.
areas, the listing agent's taking care of all that.
Mhm.
Right.
So we actually took that upon ourselves because if we get to the day of closing and we don't have a water and sewer bill from the agent, then it makes us look bad. So we're reaching out and getting that. So, but yeah, and then transfer tax, you know, every ward has a different transfer tax. Some municipalities have different transfer tax, so we have that. Our system has all that. So we'll put it in the actual municipality or ward, and it'll give us the transfer tax. And we've done business down here before.
Corey used to work for a company that was here in town, so, and he was back and forth in Pittsburgh, so we had that, plus we've done, like you said, we've done a lot in Pittsburgh. And then Katie, obviously, being a realtor in the Pittsburgh area before she came, she grew up, actually, I graduated with her, so she was in State College and then moved to Pittsburgh for a while. And then just came back that she was a realtor in Pittsburgh, so she has understanding.
Just tell me, Ally, you don't know what you're talking about. We know how to do business in Pittsburgh. Shut up.
I-
That's your business.
It's a legit, it's a
You
legit
want you to be
question.
comfortable, so
Yeah.
Yeah, and we appreciate that because we have the same issues in our area as well. Now, we go back to the tax collector thing. In our area, in the rural areas, there's tax collector Bob, who doesn't pick up his phone but 2 hours a week,
Why?
right?
Yeah.
So he has availability on Tuesday nights from 6 to 8.
Yeah.
You'll never talk to him unless you call between those 2 hours.
Here's a
Right.
strange one for you.
And we actually will call him even.
Here's a local to here unique thing that's a strange, I find it strange, and pretty much everybody that is east of Murraysville thinks this is strange. Who do you contact about the escrow? Deposit money? Like, how do you figure out, like, how does that come to you? How's that information provided to you?
Commission statement?
Who provides? The listing agent?
Yeah.
Oh, no,
But
not
here,
here.
it's
Not
a
here.
buyer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Commission statement.
Yeah.
So it's an oddity for us out in Podunk and then, well, all the way across the state. It's just done differently.
Yeah, because the seller's paying for it, so why would the buyer's agent be providing?
First for buyer holders here.
Right.
Yeah, because yeah, we know what the escrow is, that's where the buyer's agent.
But think about this. If you were to go through how many deals, failed deals, how many failed because of the buyer escrow? Right.
So the seller should be holding money, the seller's agent should be holding money.
Right.
Here's a question for the state brokers exam, which I'm about to take for the 5th time on Friday in the state by work.
All right, you got it.
Good luck.
Here's one of the questions,
You can help me study next year.
Doug, if you're the seller's broker and I'm the buyer's broker,
Mhm.
and Eva puts in a hand money deposit,
Mhm.
and it says in the contract that her buyer's broker is supposed to hold it.
Mhm.
She hands you the check. What are you supposed to do for check?
Yeah,
To me?
What's the con, what's it,
You're
what's
supposed to follow what's ever in the contract, right?
correct?
Everybody agrees to this. Whatever's in the contract
Yeah.
is what that other.
Unless you
broker
draft an
should do,
addendum.
Unless it's addendum in the contract. Whatever's in the contract is what that broker should do. Okay, the trick question on the test is, does that other broker have a duty to protect that escrow? Not just give it back,
Mhm.
which is in the contract. You gave it to him. You wanted to give it to him. Does he have a duty to protect it?
I would say
Not
yes,
giving it to me.
because he should have said, hey, I'm not the one to give
I
that
can't even
to.
accept that check.
Yeah, I'll send
I'm
it
out.
later.
Shouldn't
then.
have, Jeff.
So he
It's a good
accepted
question.
it, so therefore he should take acceptance of taking care of it.
It is a good question. So for the sake of our PC class, and most folks that are new, I had it up on the screen there for a few minutes, but I was getting, the echo was driving me crazy. But I wanted to make sure, and then you guys will see this, I'll get the folder out to you guys so you can see it. Universal put together a checklist for prior to closing, closing day, and after closing. You guys can pull that out real quick. Okay, it's inside your file, Universal file, and we'll walk through it with you guys online too, so you, and some of you know this, it's old hat, but I want to make sure we cover this. Because this week we were going to go back to basics, and this is back to basics. Okay? Closing checklist. Now, of course, we have one for compliance. All right? And we're going to touch on that later on.
We've customized those checklists for every stage in command case.
Right.
And customized
So
them.
we'll touch, can you touch on that just a little at the beginning of your class, kind of segue into it? So we'll touch on that. And compliance is there's stuff that's optional, there's stuff conditional, there's stuff that's required on command. All right, these things are required, period, in the story, and they should be required in general, because you don't get a commission check from the settlement if you don't have these things. So follow along with this checklist too. Make sure that Universal Settlement has all the documents that we need for your file. If you're using a buyer's agent, and confirm with them, they have sent the agreement of sale, any addendums, and a buyer fee sheet. Buyer fee sheet. Does anybody not know what a buyer fee sheet is?
Yeah, just like their closing, yeah.
Estimated closing costs, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Buyer's fee sheet.
We have a fee sheet that has like a breakout of like different information, so I can send that to you, that we have a buyer side and a seller side, that we can send out.
Yeah, so the information we're looking for is, we want to confirm your commission. Because a lot of times, obviously, the seller's listing agent is providing us the commission, what you're to get paid as the buyer's agent. Sometimes that doesn't line up. So we can be the middleman. You tell us what your commission is, 2.5% or 3%, then we get something different from the listing agent and it doesn't match. So then we're reaching out to the listing agent saying, hey, we got a 3% commission on the buyer side, we're told. Can you take a look at that again and let us know what the difference is? That way we're correcting the settlement statement before it goes out.
We do that right now on our commission statement.
Correct. That's why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah.
Because if you use them, they have one
Right.
that goes out. You can fill it out, it goes straight to them.
Mhm.
Our commission statement sheet's the same thing.
Yeah,
Do you
you
have
can send us
transaction
yours.
fees
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's your
For
transaction?
200, well, we can charge whatever we want, but the broker takes 200.
Okay.
So we gotta recoup that plus,
Yeah.
people are all over the map.
We have transaction coordinators. Some of our agents have transaction coordinators, so their fees are a little different.
I know.
We're $199 at Johnstown's $249, here it's $200. So like I said, with the transaction
Charge
coordinator might be more.
$275.
I charge
Yeah.
500 for the transaction.
I wish it was universal.
Yeah.
That's all right.
See what I did?
As long as we have it on in
Yeah.
writing, that way
Right.
we don't have to remember.
But that's why that sheet's important,
Yeah.
okay? Who else needs a copy of the sales contract? You got an executed contract, it's time to party, right? We haven't gotten a commission yet, but we're gonna go buy drinks at the bar for everybody, right?
No, we're not, Don. We're talking to.
No, we're not, that's right, you never count your chickens before they hatch. But you have an executed contract. What's the next step? Who are we sending it to?
Lender.
Lender, and
Title.
so what do I do? Well, I don't know if this is a question for Jade. On every single deal that I send, and they're right here on the checklist is docs@settlementsdirect.com. Every time I get an executed contract, I send it to them, the lender, and I copy the other agent.
Yep.
Because now I have a chain started, because I'm gonna get a reply. Now, if that reply comes back, and the reply from the closing company, if it's universal, which never happens, at least in my experience with them. If it doesn't have everybody on it, I'm gonna reply to that to make sure everybody is on it, okay? I do it on everything. It has saved my backside on more than one occasion, okay? It's held me accountable, right? Which is important, because sometimes we get busy, we get slammed, we forget a document or two, like maybe a fee sheet or something, and Randy gets to call me at 6:30 and say, where's the fee sheet? That's never happened.
It's the last thing I do on every deal.
But it does happen, right? Yeah, it does happen. We get busy, we get slammed, we forget something.
I do it the week before.
Yeah, so,
Well, not only that, but our feed sheet would include inspections, tests, home inspection, was there a water test, et cetera. So all that's on there as well. So it might be on your fee sheet as well.
It's not, because I can speak for myself, but I make all my people pay that up front directly to the vendor.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
That's what agents should do. But a lot of times we'll get to the closing and the agent shows up and says, I reviewed the settlement statement yesterday, didn't notice it until just now that the $500 home inspection fee is on. Right? That happens a
I
lot.
have
to us.
fronted things for sellers before where I have to get reimbursed and they're out of town, they can't
Yeah.
pay for
Like I'm
dry
paying,
tests and
yeah,
stuff.
I'm paying for
Sure.
staging now and cleaning and.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you could relay that to, on our fee sheet will be other, check other, hey, we had a lawn care company mow the grass on the seller side. There's $45 owed to this lawn care company. We'll put it right on the settlement statement, cut a check and send it to them, as long as we have an invoice.
The other big thing that gets missed a lot is, and it's just only because I think agents get super busy when they're doing their reply to inspection and they're supposed to get credit. Making sure that the lender and the title company get that.
The CTA,
yeah.
give them a copy of the
Those
CTA.
are super important because we go to closing and they're like, there's $1,000 seller credit and that is not an easy fix with the lender. Our side it is with the lender, they might have to change and then depending on how much it is, if there was already seller's assist, it changes everything. So just making sure that is sent out and then also price escalations, because we're in that market, making sure the title company gets it. We went to closing, actually to closing. And the agent, no one told us, no one told the lender. The agent was sitting there and the seller goes, this purchase price isn't right. And we're like, what?
How embarrassing for that agent.
Yeah, really.
For
Both
everyone.
sides.
I
Both
don't do
agents.
escalations. I don't even do them.
You know, escalations, I do them a lot.
Yeah.
A lot, but I make sure we get protocol changes as soon as they happen.
And the final amount,
So-
because even though it goes up to like 275, it
Yeah.
might only end at 268.
Yeah.
So just making sure that we know what the final.
Yeah, because at the bottom of the escalation, they gotta put in that amount they land on, and they gotta execute it for that to be valid.
yeah,
Right?
Chris just brought up a good point. Everybody gets a copy of everything.
Yeah.
And make sure it's the right form. If you don't know what the right form is, reach out to leadership, reach out to your fellow agents and ask. Remember, I'm gonna reference it again. PA Realtor, PARealtors.org is a fountain of information and all the forms and how to use them and what they are used for. It's there. It's a full library and it's updated when the form updates, it's updated that day.
They have a whole guidebook for each form.
Yes, for every
I
form.
just learned that yesterday.
It is so nice.
Cause I was gonna say, I
Yeah.
don't even know what the escalation form looks like, or would know,
Right.
or know how. to
And
fill it out.
that's a tricky one
That's a fun one.
It's
because-
more tricky.
because if you, I studied contracts. So when you look at that contract from one perspective,
Right.
if you word it wrong, you could really screw up the sale. So like you have the escalation of like a $500 or $1,000, whatever gap you pick.
Right.
In reality, that contract, if I beat that, if I'm a competing
agent and I beat that contract by $1, they can pick you
Right,
because you said 500.
right.
So from $1 over to 500,
It's 500.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if I if I go $1 over your client's bid,
Yeah.
they can pick it.
And they have to prove the
Legally.
offer out.
In the way it's written. So if you don't write it correctly, you're opening, now, I'm not saying it's gonna happen, right? I mean,
Oh, it happened.
it's okay, see, there you go.
I was gonna say, oh,
It
yeah.
can happen, will
Does
happen.
happen.
Yeah.
But that's why there's if you haven't done it already, especially PC, if you're in productivity right now and you're learning and you're new, even if you're not, go to parealtors.org and take the time, block schedule out 15 to 20 minutes of your day, go in, pull one of the documents, pull one of the contracts, one of the forms, and learn about it. It's 15, 20 minutes of your day. Learn about these forms. These forms are extremely vital. And I was dealing with a situation this morning. There are situations that come up all the time. And it's all because the right document wasn't filled out. It wasn't filled out correctly. It wasn't executed correctly. If there's not a date on a contract, guess what?
It's not executed.
Doesn't matter. It's
Oh,
over.
let me blow your mind with Bradley Dornish. If you initial a box, they better have a date. You know that sales agreement where you have all those spots for your inspection where you elect and you waive and put your initials there? Every single one of them should have a date.
Technical.
When you end up in court and they're debating which date that initial was put on that piece of paper, if it doesn't have a date next to it, they can have a
And you might,
broad debate about what date applies to that initial.
But when you send it through .loop and, like
DocuSign.
DocuSign, doesn't it automatically date
it dates the signature.
Oh, that's
It
right.
does. It's the beauty of DocuSign. I will not subscribe to .loop. But that is the beauty of DocuSign. I will not subscribe to .loop. I will not have a conversation with you about .loop or security. I will not advocate for you to work in .loop, period. I don't care how easy it is.
Summer, okay.
Okay.
And
All right.
timestamps also.
The timestamps it, okay, and it also generates a certificate of the authorized signature or in
Gotta have the
initial,
dates.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
the certificate's great, but it doesn't put the date on the initial. Date's gotta be.
Get her followed.
Tell them. Tell them.
She's gotta do another hour class
I've
after
been
this.
studying for the broker's exam for a month now,
so
and I'll tell you one
no,
other thing.
Yeah,
I'll tell you one other thing. Seriously, when Doug was saying about people need copies of documents, the second that your client signs a document, they should receive a copy of it. DocuSign does that for you. It sends them back the executed copy.
Plus you have the envelope that you can share with everybody.
It does it for you, right? When you sit down with them across the table, honey, unless you've got a copy machine in your car, you have a problem. You gotta leave that meeting, go make copies.
so the moral of it is, make sure that you are, what documents you do have, make sure everybody gets the copies that they need, and make sure they get the executed copies. The executed copies, right? So not just, when you put your, if you're on the buyer side, you put a seller's disclosure, I'm sorry, if you're on the listing side, you put a selling disclosure in command. Put the right one in,
You need both.
We have that both.
Right.
We have the original.
I'm saying, put the right one in, yeah, put the right one in. So make sure that you have the signed initial documents complete and executed. Take an extra minute to go back over your contract. Make sure that initials that were supposed to be captured are captured. The bottom of the agreement of sale, every single page, make sure that is initial. If the inspection line that's blank, initial it. Why?
The other,
Yes,
waive it. If you're not.
right, waive it, but make sure it's initial.
Yes.
Because if you leave it blank, you're opening yourself up to scrutiny. So keep making sure you're going back through and you're checking all your documents. Precision, precision, precision
And if
on
you have a
everything.
question, ask one of us.
Is there such thing as a shortcut?
No.
Not
Never.
on contracts.
Never. We can't take shortcuts. We can't afford to do it as agents, We can't afford to do, our clients can't afford us to do it as their representation.
Can I still?
And
go
the
on?
closing companies and the lenders can't afford it because we will hold up everything if we don't have the proper documentation filled out correctly. Okay, it costs everybody in this, and it's us, we're the centerpiece.
God bless you, Derek.
Why?
Keep this safe.
Okay.
I was like,
What did he do now? What did he do now?
Wait, what?
Well, I mean, I'm his father. He's gonna put up with it.
Right.
So, this checklist that's in this folder this is like gold to me. We have hours that we use, but for me personally, this is like gold. It's a very, very valuable piece of what I do on every transaction. Listen, if I'm on the listing side and they didn't use Universal, I kill the deal. No, I'm just kidding. No, if I still use this. Okay, we talk all the time about the 3 L's. Who remembers what the 3 L's are?
Leads, listing, leverage.
Yes. Lead, listings, and leverage.
Good
She waits to
job.
cry.
So we've talked about leads and we're going to continue to talk about it. We had Joe's workshop last week, which was phenomenal. The feedback from it has been great. We're going to piggyback off of that going forward. We have workshops that we're scheduling. We're going to be planning to hold on Wednesdays that are going to be similar to that. Could be more of an activity-based workshop where everybody's working together to create ideas, create action, help each other build their businesses, and support each other in their lead gen. So we're going to be talking leads a lot. Obviously, we do, but we're going to be talking about it even more. Listings, we're going to be talking more about listings because we are going to be trying to generate leads for those listings. How many in here have buyers with no house?
14 of them.
Everybody, right? We have buyers and no inventory. So listings, listings, listings. The last piece, leverage. We talk all the time about leveraging the folks on our team, right? These people are on our team.
Correct.
So leverage the information that they have.
Yeah, we all work together to come to the same goal, and that's to make the process fun and precise for the buyer. So that when they get to the closing table, they have nothing but smiles on their face that they're buying a house. You know, the worst thing is you get to a closing table and the buyer's mad. Their lender screwed them over. Things changed during the transaction. They didn't have any communication, right? You hear all these things throughout the process. We don't want any of that. So we work with you guys. We're all team.
I'll give you an example of how hands-on this group is. Okay, how involved they are and how concerned they are about our process. I had a closing at their State College location last year. And this buyer was an engineer. So if anybody has ever done work with an
Oh, God, just
engineer,
kill me now.
you know that every T will be crossed, every I will be dotted, and if they're, yes, yes,
And come
right?
back and ask you questions.
Oh.
They know that you do not have the answer.
Hey.
I want you to find the answer.
Earned my pay on that one, baby.
I'm
Okay.
mine.
You go beyond
Earned
that.
it.
Yeah.
Earned
Go
it.
beyond that.
So we get to the table and now keep in mind, he and I had gone over the CD the night before,
Well, sure you did. He's an engineer.
okay? We talked about it at the walkthrough that morning.
Well, of course.
Was that the State College area buyer?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He knows.
How could you forget him?
He showed the house. Cool guy.
That was an awesome showing. Yeah.
Really, yeah, super, super great guy. But man, when it was time to put ink to paper, everything stopped,
How long did that closing
including
take?
my
Doc?
heart.
How long did that closing take?
An hour and 15 minutes,
That's impressive.
okay?
I was expecting
He didn't want title insurance. Do you remember this?
that.
So, and I'm like this. And the closing agent looks at me and because it total blindside. We went over the CD. He knew it was there, but he didn't say anything to me. He wanted to put them on the spot
At the closing,
at the closing
on purpose.
in the moment.
To see
Exactly.
what he could get out of it.
Exactly. She dropped what she was doing and came in and handled it. On the spot. on the spot. But I mean, even just that level of involvement and hands-on and she wasn't obligated to do that. The closing agent could have just said, well, okay, you know,
Bye.
onward and upward or whatever, on to the next or whatever. No, they stepped in and that's what they do. So it's that level of involvement, it's that level of appreciation, not only for what we do, but for what our clients go through, for what our lenders go through. And Corey touched on it. They know we're all in this together. Without all the spokes being connected, the wheel doesn't turn right. So I have had nothing, as I said, I will glow. You guys know I will gloat the daylights out of something. If it's not worth gloating over, I won't talk about it. I just won't talk about it. But if I gloat about it, it's everything that's advertised. So, I mean, these folks are the real deal. And even if you're not using them, that's probably the part that makes me appreciate them the most, is we can have a casual conversation about something that they're not even involved in, and they'll answer the questions. So, I mean, if you're new to this industry, if you're new to this market, and you're really like having a hard time with something or trying to figure something out, give these folks a shot. Okay, and I don't think they'll be disappointed. That's, I mean, I'm not going to sell the idea to you, but they're that good. So,
Well, here's a quick example of that, because there's a real estate broker in the State College market where they have their own title company, in-house title company, right? So we have relationships with those realtors, and the realtors can't reach out to that title company and get an answer. They reach out to us. We're not even involved in a transaction whatsoever. We're helping them out because we know that they're not going to get the answer, and it might not be the right answer, it might not be on time. So we're there to help them help their clients as well. So we get that. I mean, on the way here, I got a text from a realtor that literally does not send me any business at all, but I told her what she needed to do because she couldn't get an answer from the title company that her borrower chose.
You guys are not Universal Solution.
We're not solutions.
Okay.
We are not settlement company
Yeah,
universal.
that's the
It's-
Pittsburgh
it's
version,
okay.
right?
so
I've got a buyer going through them right now. I thought you guys were done.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
thanks to Brandy and Corey for coming in.
Thank you.
We'll do. Don't forget, recap at 7:30 tonight. Next week, don't miss next week's class. I like to pre-sell. We have a big announcement coming up next week for everybody, so make sure you tune in for that. And a big May coming up. Keep an eye out for the May calendar. Will be coming out later this week. So lots of cool stuff coming up. I'm going to hand it off to Chris here as soon as she gets settled, and we'll go.
This is a giveaway if you want to put their cards in and then
Yeah.
it's a Yeti.
Oh, sweet.
Of course, not going that home.
Oh.
I'm
It's
going
a
to
car.
use yours.
It's a business
I don't have none. Who wants to stay for command?
Yeah, let's do command trainings coming up next. Hopefully you guys can stick around if you're online. If
I gotta go.
back on. Okay.
You gonna go?
Anybody needs anything, join us tonight. If you need the link, shoot me a text or an email, okay?
All right.
All right, see you guys.
See ya.